Welcome, everyone, to the third installment in the Responsible Conduct of Research Workshop series. Today, our topic is on conflicts of commitment and conflicts of interest with Dr. Sriganesh Ramachandra Rao. I'm going to go over just a few things before we begin again today. We have two other series running at this time, Dissemination in Implementation Science, as well as Translational Teamwork. I will put the schedule for those series in the chat. We also have an entire library of other workshop series that have been run. So if you're interested in similar other topics, we may have already done a workshop on it. So check out our library. We are offering a certificate of completion if you attend all 6 sessions in the series. I'll be handing those out at the end of the series. We also offer a micro-credential in responsible research. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to Catherine Sedota. I will put her email in the chat. And if you're a physician, you can get 1.5 credits of CME credits today and 9 credits for the whole series. So I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Rao. He is an assistant professor in the Department of Ophthalmology in the Jacobs School of Medicine. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I really appreciate that. So I see that we have about 26 participants. I would like to know how many of you all are faculty, how many are staff, students, any faculties? You can feel free to unmute your mics. And great. We have one faculty member. And I'm assuming the rest are staff or graduate students. So in the first 2 installments of this RCR workshop series with Dr. Fleisler, you essentially visited the concepts of modes of academic dishonesty in terms of falsification, fabrication, and whatnot. And it's in human nature to try and get any advantage that we can. And in the first 2 installments, you went over academic dishonesty as a means of doing that. And today we are going to talk about conflicts of commitment and conflicts of interest and how the research institute tries to recognize and manage such conflicts and conflicts of commitment or of interest if they may arise. Okay, so I don't have any financial conflicts in giving up this presentation or any other conflicts of interest. So I'm disclosing it upfront. So today we will be talking about conflict of interest, conflict of commitment. What are the university and JSMBS policies towards conflicts of interest and conflicts of commitment? How do faculty and staff report any financial interests, if there are any? How does the university monitor and evaluate cases of conflicts? And we'll go over a few case examples. I don't expect this to be a very long session, so stick with me. All right, so we will primarily be discussing JSMBS or UB policies and procedures when it comes to COI and COC. The information that I'm going to present to you all today is publicly available online and also from other sources, because how most research institutes, even those such as UMass, Stanford, Northwestern, the methodology to monitor and evaluate COI and COCs are pretty much same across the board. We have also derived information from the Forum on Conflicts of Interest in Academia and AAMC. So what is a conflict of commitment? When pursuit of outside activities require an extraordinary amount of time on the part of faculty or staff, which may interfere with their obligation towards the school or university responsibilities, then we have a conflict of commitment. So conflict of commitment is primarily to do with time. For example, there may be an external activity for pay, consulting, but the commitment issue comes with time. How much of time is a faculty or staff dedicating towards an outside activity? It's generally easy to deal with. Let us say if someone has a significant conflict of commitment where, let's say, they are writing a book for a publishing house, right, which takes up 50% of their time for a year or so. Then if there's a conflict of commitment, it can be generally easily dealt with by changing their status as either part-time or making a commensurate changes to their employment at the university. However, conflict of interest is financial or other considerations that may compromise or even have an appearance or a potential of compromising one's objectivity or professional judgments or induce biases in performing their duties or responsibilities towards the school or the university. The reason why we are talking about appearance or potential is because it depends a lot on circumstances. Okay? For example, if an employee discloses an external tie, again, notice that the primary responsibility of detection of conflicts of interest lies with the employee. The employee has to disclose an external tie so that they can step away from a certain procedure or a process so that the university can ensure that any chance of bias can be removed or be dealt with appropriately. For example, they may remove a certain employee from certain purchasing decisions, right? Or certain decisions that needs to be made towards a research project. By doing so, the university can then ensure that the potential conflict has been eliminated. But again, notice that it is the employee's primary responsibility to disclose even an appearance of a conflict of interest. Another example, if an employee accepts a gift from someone outside the UB, or let's say a company, or an organization outside of UB, and then they make what he or she claims is an unbiased decision about using the services of that person's company, right, or that company itself. Even though the faculty or staff may be taking an unbiased decision regardless of that external gift, just the appearance of bias creates a potential conflict of interest, right? So why is this really important? It's important for the university and the school to make sure that there is no appearance or potential conflicts of interest because the general public invests and places trust in UB and JSMBS, right? So the university does not want to take a hit on its image by even potential conflicts of interest in the interactions, outside interactions of faculty or staff. So as faculty, staff, or members of the UB community, it's our responsibility to act in a way that earns the highest level of public confidence, which is central to the mission of UB. Right? So the first action that one needs to take then is to recognize and a potential conflict, either of commitment or of interest, and where necessary, eliminate and manage those potential conflicts of interest and conflicts of commitment in a coordination with the university to ensure that there is continued public trust on the university. Okay, you can find most of the information that I am discussing here in any of these links. This presentation will be made available to all of you right after the talk. So you can feel free to access any of these resources to get more information about COI and COC. So the expectation is that all faculty and staff members act with honesty and integrity in the best interest of the university while discharging their duties and in order to abide by the highest ethical standards set by the university. That doesn't mean that faculty or staff cannot engage in outside activity. In fact, it is encouraged, right? The university wants faculty and staff to work with the community, with the outside community, to serve as board members, to write books, right? To give high impact presentations. All of that is encouraged because they are also a part of university's mission. But while discharging those outside responsibilities, one has to make sure that you abide to the standards of honesty and integrity that is expected by JSMBS and UB, and that is done again through disclosures. Because of these outside commitments, which are also a part of your responsibilities towards the university, it's inevitable that there are potential conflicts of interest and conflicts of commitment. So we need to see then how we can manage these conflicts, right? So faculty and staff with more than 50% of time resources invested to UB owe their primary professional commitment to UB. They must commit commensurate time and intellectual energy to support and enhance the UB mission. Okay? Other part-time faculty and staff members can owe time and effort commensurate with their appointments. This is why I mentioned that managing conflicts of commitment is easier because you can always alter the appointments commensurate to their efforts, right? It's extremely important to know that no JSMBS or UB employee may use their official position or influence to further their personal gain or advancement or that of their family members or personal associates at the expense of UB or by leveraging their position at UB. This is strictly against UB policy. Okay? Let's say employing a family member in a lab or providing subcontracts to family members or personal associates. These are all no when it comes to UB policy. Okay? So, as I mentioned already several times, that it's the faculty and staff's responsibility to disclose all potential conflicts of interest and commitment. Okay? Once this disclosure happens on the side of the faculty and staff, there is a system in place within UB. There are appropriate JSMBS or UB officials who evaluate these potential conflicts case by case. And if they find that there may be a significant COI, they develop a management plan. That way, we prevent any conflict of interest in the decisions made by faculty or staff at UB. So when sponsored research or technology transfer is involved, a faculty member must disclose potential COIs and COCs to again, to the appropriate conflict of interest committee to again ensure that the transaction is occurring without any biases. At any point, feel free to interrupt me and ask questions. You can raise your hand. I see that there are a few chats. Let's see.
There's a few chats, but no questions yet.
Okay, no questions. All right, thank you. Just wanted to make sure. All right. However, there may be specific circumstances where UB can authorize faculty or staff for incidental use of university resources for purposes that may not be directly related to UB mission. But again, notice the keyword is pre-authorized. Okay? And this includes, but not limit. It's not limited to facilities, personnel, student equipment, and confidential information. Okay, so the full responsibility for disclosing COI and COC falls on the faculty and staff. And not just disclosing, it has to be accurate and it has to be complete. Two really important terms that you need to remember: accurate and complete. Uh, these competing financial interests may be your personal financial interests, your family or personal associates' financial interests, your relationship with sponsors or vendors, any ownership or investment that faculty or staff may have in outside businesses or companies, any employment outside of UB, and any significant honoraria or travel support that faculty or staff receives. Now, when it comes to honoraria and travel support, it's very commonplace for staff or students or faculties to receive fellowships, travel fellowships, honoraria for giving plenary lectures or say serving on study sections. Those are all fine as long as the honoraria does not cross $1,000. You still need to disclose everything. So these potential COIs and COCs that are disclosed by the faculty and staff are then evaluated by a designated official from the dean's office. This designate then develops plans to manage potential COIs and COCs. This may also involve other UB individuals, such as the director of the Office of Compliance, Dr. Mulchan Patel, and also a conflicts of interest committee that's in UB. Ultimately, they administer the policy and enforce the policies on the UB community. All right. So it's problematic if there is lack of full disclosure because there may be an investigation with pharma or industry engagements. And if there is no full disclosure, you cannot ensure that the study is designed without any biases, that the results of the study are interpreted without any biases. It's really important to fully disclose all engagements. Or there can be foreign interference. For example, there is believed to be a strategic plan for talent recruitment, and lack of full disclosure can lead to leak of sensitive information to foreign hands. So, what can the faculty and I think we just went over this, did we? Okay, it's just repeated, but you get the point. Okay, so now UB keeps and manages all of the records of the disclosures of COI and COC through the CLIck system. How many of you here have worked with the UB CLIck system or have seen the UB CLIck system? Any show of hands? Okay, Emily has worked with CLIck system. So UB CLIck system is where you disclose, you do your annual disclosures of COI or COC. It maintains confidentiality, but your disclosures are necessary for resolving any disputes. And also, the university can go back to these COI and COC records to handle any possible policy violations. Okay? So, what we need to do as members of the UB community is ask whether I need to disclose interaction X or Y or Z. And as I mentioned, the keywords are potential or even appearance of COI or COC. If if there is an appearance of COI, you should still disclose it in a timely manner, in an accurate manner, and completely. We all are required to file our conflicts of interest every year in November. You all might have received emails through the year reminding you to submit your COI for the November deadline. While that is compulsory, assuming that you did not have any COI that cropped up during the year, but you need to update your COI as and when you think there may be a conflict of interest, okay? Which is why it has to be done in a timely manner, not just the annual disclosures. Now, let us say you did your COI disclosure in November, and in February, Bristol Myers Squibb decided to fund a study, right? Which is to be carried out in your lab. You need to refile your COI in February, right after that COI, the potential COI occurs. Okay. So what is important is that we disclose any significant financial interests. The determination is done by the responsible official, okay, the dean's designate, as to whether there is a significant financial interest, if there is a conflict of interest, and if it is determined to be so, how is the university going to manage or remove that conflict of interest? Okay? All of this is extremely important because UB as a university needs to be compliant with the disclosure obligations to U.S. Department of U.S. Public Health Services. Okay. Okay. So there are different types of conflicts. There are direct conflicts where A gets, let's say, paid by outside institute B. That is a direct conflict. Or the study in person A's lab is directly funded by company C. Those are direct conflicts. And there are standard management plans that can be set to manage such conflicts. Sometimes there may be an oversight from another member within the UB community to make sure that that study or whatever that procedure may be occurs without any biases. There are also indirect conflicts where A pays B, B pays C. So it's indirect, it still needs to be disclosed, and the university can still install a management plan to ensure that the conflict of interest has been eliminated. Now, here are a few examples of some emails that may be sent out by the dean's designate if a certain disclosure appears to be a conflict of interest. Okay, dear Dr. XYZ, you have stated in your disclosure forms that all of the research sponsors arrangements with you are as described below. You received a personal compensation of X tens of thousands of dollars from a company for your activities such as consulting, advisory, speaker, board of directors within the past year. Furthermore, you also have a significant time obligation, unpaid relationship. Within the past year, neither you or any of your members, however, have received any other type of compensation, including stock or stock options from company. We have determined that you do have a conflict of interest for your participation in the study. It is understood that you will manage your conflict of interest. So this is, so you need to understand the various steps that are happening here. Dr. XYZ has done a good job of doing a timely, accurate, and complete disclosure of COI, right? The university is now trying to manage this conflict of interest through the dean's designate, and the dean's designate is now proposing a management plan to eliminate any COI. Let's say what that looks like. Disclose in writing that you have been paid travel support and or consultancy fees for your various interactions by the research sponsor on informed consent forms. And also, you need to let all your team members know that you have a conflict of interest in the study. Okay, if there is a COI and it has not been disclosed to the fellow team members, and your team members do the research faithfully, assuming that they don't have any conflicts and there is no conflict from anyone else in the group. But if one person can bias the interpretations of the outcome of the studies in one way or the other, it is not fair to anyone involved in the study. Okay, so this disclosure needs to be done to everyone, including the study team members. Okay? Because of your significant interest, both paid and unpaid with the sponsor, you will restrict yourself from patient recruitment and final interpretation of the results. Let other investigators handle these tasks. Now, in case the PI himself or herself or themselves have a significant conflict of interest, right? Then the designate might include a co-PI, encourage inclusion of a co-PI in the study so that the co-PI can make all the important decisions regarding the study. Okay? Or they could install a monitor for the study who would overlook above the PI the performance of that specific grant activity, right? Disclose your financial interest in all relevant publications and presentations of the study results, right? As you noticed, when I first started this presentation, I disclosed that I don't have any interests. But if there were, that has to be disclosed, right? All publications and presentations must be written by the investigators. Although this work is funded by a company, the publications or any of the presentations can neither be prepared nor disseminated by any of company employees or ghostwriters from a company. Please indicate that these terms are acceptable to you as it manages, reduces, and eliminates the conflict of your participation in the above mentioned study. If there is any change in the agreed upon conditions, you must notify this office in writing immediately, right? So again, to remind you all, there are multiple levels here. One is disclosure of the COI. Second is management plan. And this is a standard management plan, right? And if all of these terms are agreed upon, then you have eliminated the conflict of interest in the study. Okay? The university does not discourage anyone to be associated with outside organizations or be funded by pharma companies. It's just that the university needs to make sure that there is no appearance or potential COI. Now, here is another case. Okay, dear Dr. XYZ, I'm in the process of reviewing your funded, unfunded project as shown in the forwarded email for any possible financial conflict of interest. Your research project or study, as identified below, is funded by a company or a sponsor. Please review the information you listed for this study or project to answer the question listed below. Do you have any overlap with regard to direct or indirect financial conflict of interest between your study supported by company or sponsor and your interactions, the use of any drugs and or devices by the entities listed in your disclosure, and your financial interest with them? Your email, if there is no conflict of interest, would simply state that there is no direct or indirect FCOI. If there is, it says yes, right? Okay, so there are actual funding mechanisms where investigators can actually work with small businesses. These funding mechanisms are called Small Business Innovation Research, SBIR grants, or small business technology transfer grants, STTR grants. Okay. Various federal agencies under congressionally mandated funding, they provide funds to small businesses to support research and development with the potential for commercialization. Okay. Both the awards are made directly to the small business of concern here, okay, also known as an outside company. Now, the difference between these two flavors of funding is that SBIRs don't require any involvement of a research institute such as UB, okay? But often, these small business companies collaborate with research institutes on SBIRs, although it is not required. It's not mandatory. Okay. On the other hand, the Small Business Technology Transfer Grant (STTRs) actually requires that a small business collaborates with the research institute for a certain portion of the award. And in fact, these STTRs typically has two PIs. It's a multi-PI grant. There is one PI on part of the research institute and another PI on part of the small business. So, in case of SBIRs, this is applicable to the SBC. The eligibility requirement is that the company is independently operated. It must be a for-profit business, but it has to be a small business company, meaning less than 500 employees. Okay? If there is a subcontract with another party, the small business company essentially does 2/3 of the research during the first phase, and it must do at least 1/2 of the research during second phase. And that another party can be a research institute. But again, the PI for this SBIR grant has to be primarily employed by the SBC. Okay. Now, in case a research institute is involved, then during phase 1 of these SBIR grants, the SPC does 2/3 of the research. The research institute may conduct up to 1/3 of the research. And in the second phase, it can be half and half. Okay. But however, notice that the PI of the company portion of the research and the university portion of the research may not be the same person. Now, if there is a part-time faculty member at UB who also runs an SBC, right? They cannot apply for an SBIR grant as the PI on both the SBC side of it and the research institute side of it, right? It has to be two different PIs. Of course, if you're a full-time employee at UB, then you possibly cannot be an owner of an SBC or be working for an SBC, right? So these conflicts may appear if there are part-time employees, but of course the SBIR mechanism does not allow the same person to be the PI on both the company's side of the work and the research institute side of the work. Okay? So most university researchers with full-time employment do not have the efforts available to meet the to be serving as the company PI of an SBIR or STTR anyway, right? Okay, now as far as the technology transfer grants are considered, okay, in this case, it's compulsory that an SBC collaborates with the research institute. Now, again, the SBC must be independently operated. It must be a for-profit business with less than 500 employees, and it's and is performed by the SBC. The PI on the SBC side must be primarily employed by the small company, or the person can be also employed by the collaborating research institute. On the research institute side, the collaborator is required to conduct at least 30% of the research and development, but they may conduct up to 60% of the research and development. So between a third and 2/3 of the research can be conducted by the research institute. The PI can be primarily employed by either the SBC or by the RI. But there are restrictions for the use of university resources. It's encouraged that you involve students and postdocs in faculty startup activities because it can be beneficial for the development of students and postdocs. But of course, everybody involved in the process needs to do their share of disclosures so that the activity does not, one, interfere with their training or academic progress, and also make sure there is no biases in the project. Okay, so it's very commonplace to have conflicts of interest in a community the size of UB, right? But it's really important for us to be alert of the risks and always ask if there is a potential COI. If there is, disclose it fully, accurately, and in a timely manner. Okay, a perceived conflict is as potentially damaging to the university as a real conflict. Okay, so it's really important to err on the side of caution. It's better to quote unquote over disclose than under disclose. Okay, all right. Now let's take a few case studies and see what the answers are for these. Okay, Dr. XY serves on the board of directors of a non-profit foundation, and she is unpaid for her services. Okay? Dr. XY receives a grant support for development of educational activities for the foundation. Okay. Now, should Dr. XY list her involvement with the foundation on her annual disclosure? What do you guys think?
The answer in the chat reads, yes, she should list her involvement with the foundation.
Okay. Because there is a conflict of, now the person is serving as board of director. Okay. She's serving on the board of directors. So there is a conflict of what? Is it commitment or interest?
Interest.
No, this is unpaid, right? This is unpaid for her services. So this is about time that this faculty member is channeling towards this foundation. So there is a potential conflict of commitment there, right? So they need to disclose their service as a board of director, although it is unpaid. As far as the grant activities, where the foundation in which she serves as the board of director, that needs to be disclosed as a potential conflict of commitment or interest. The latter would be conflict of interest. Okay? And there needs to be a management plan to ensure that whatever that program is aiming to do is done in an unbiased manner. Okay. All right. A clinical faculty or investigator at a medical school is also employed as a part-time member at an institute, the freestanding conducting research. A pharma company developed an agreement with the institute to make presentations on the company's behalf. This member of the institute made presentations in programs sponsored by this pharma company. The institute received payments from the pharma company as per the agreement, and the participating member was paid extra compensation for his participation by the institute. Now, should the participating member disclose his payments as paid service by the pharma company? Why? We spoke about two types of conflict, right? One was a direct conflict where A pays B. The other was indirect conflict, where A pays B, B pays C, C pays D. Ultimately, there is a conflict. It's indirect, but there is a conflict of interest, and the faculty member has to essentially disclose both their part-time employment at this other institute and also the honors area or the compensation they received from the pharma company while um, while giving a talk, okay, on behalf of the other institute, right? Okay. When in doubt, just disclose. Okay. Let the university do its due diligence and actually see if there is a potential conflict of interest and implement a management plan. Okay. A university faculty member, Dr. AB, and his or her colleagues jointly formed a company to develop a software to collect patient-based information for evaluation. Okay. A SBIR grant was awarded to this company, and a subcontract was given to Dr. AB, who employed his son for a period of 3 months to perform data collections for the charts. 1. Was it appropriate for Dr. AB to employ his son on this subcontract? Why? Now, it's okay for Dr. AB to start a company with a colleague. Okay? It's a small business company. And it's okay for that small business company to apply for an SBIR grant as long as it's not the same person who's acting as a PI on both the research institute and the SBC's part. Okay? Now, what has happened here is that small business company has given a subcontract to Dr. AB himself. Okay? And what Dr. AB did with that subcontract is employed his son for a period of 3 months to perform data collections. Right? This is against UB policy. You cannot employ your own family member. It's okay even to give a subcontract to Dr. AB because the primary PI, as per an SBI grant, is on the SBC side, right? But Dr. AB cannot employ his or her son through a subcontract, okay? Would it be all right to employ his son on the SBIR grant to perform this task? Why? Any answers?
I think there might be, I hope I'm saying it right, probably a conflict of interest with giving the subcontract to this is another relative, his son again?
Yes. So the first part where Dr. AB employs his or her son under the subcontract is not okay, right? That's against UB policy.
Okay.
But would it be okay now? This SBC has obtained this SBIR, right? Now, is it okay to employ Dr. AB's son or daughter on the SBIR or the SBC side of the grant, not on the subcontract? That is actually okay because there is nothing that stops a certain person working for a certain private company, right?
Okay.
But what Dr. AB needs to do is disclose that they have a certain degree of effort towards this SBC and their family member is directly employed in this SBC. Okay, it's okay to employ. In the second case, it's okay to employ. In the first case, it's not okay to employ. In the second case, it's okay to employ as long as the conflict of interest has been disclosed. Okay?
Okay.
All right. A new company has just been formed, and 5 university employees either have board positions and or hold equity. Now, would you, A, create a separate COI management plan for each employee, or would you, B, create just one plan and name all the university employees who are affiliated with it? Why? Let's see. Dr. Williams?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
I think in this case, you could, well, let me ask you a question. Are all the 5 university employees similarly situated with
No,
with
it's never the case, right?
Say again?
It's never the case, right? Everybody has different sets of circumstances. So what do you think would be the best management plan here?
I think that's driven by their responsibilities. So we would have a separate management plan for
Yes.
each university employee involved in the private organization.
Exactly. So the deans designate would create separate management plan for each employee and regarding their participation in this venture. Okay, because in this case, one size does not fit all. Okay, each case is its own. Everybody have again their own sets of investments, and you don't know what those are, so you need to create an individual plan. All right. Well, actually, that was that for this session. I would be happy to take any questions or comments from our participants today.